The letter was in a wooden cigar box, inside a larger box of papers. Inside a steamer trunk that had been in the attic of the Price farmhouse since before Eldon Price was born. He found it in November of 1972 while cleaning out the attic after his grandmother's death. He had not been looking for it. He had been looking for the deed to a 40-acre pasture parcel his grandmother said was in the trunk somewhere. He was 52 years old, had ranched in Carbon County, Wyoming, his entire adult life. Same 340 acres his grandfather had homesteaded in 1884 along Sage Creek, 14 miles east of Rawlins. The creek ran through the northeast corner of the property, fed from Medicine Bow Range snowpack, and for 85 years the Price family had pulled irrigation water from it for the hay meadows along the north side of the ranch. The water right was filed April 3, 1887. Priority date, 1887. Amount 2.4 cubic feet per second from Sage Creek for the irrigation of 160 acres of meadow and pasture ground. Filed by August Price, Eldon's great-grandfather, with the Wyoming Territorial Water Commissioner's Office in Cheyenne. The right was 85 years old and had never been contested. Denton Kell had changed that. The Rafter K Ranch ran 2,200 acres along Sage Creek above Eldon's property, upstream on the same drainage. The Kell family had been in Carbon County since the 1910s. They ran cattle, held oil leases on the east section, and had enough money that their attorneys maintained offices in both Cheyenne and Rawlins. In the spring of 1971, Kell's crew had built a new headgate and diversion structure on Sage Creek, 600 feet upstream of Price's headgate. The work took 9 days. When it was done, Kell began pulling more water from the creek than his filed right allowed. Not by much. Enough. In the dry summer of 1972, the creek below Kell's diversion had dropped to a trickle by July. Price's meadows went dry. He hauled water for his cattle that August. First time in 30 years he'd hauled water on the Sage Creek Ranch. In September of 1972, Kell's attorney filed a complaint with the Wyoming State Engineer's Office, alleging that Price's 2.4 CFS right had been partially abandoned through non-use during the drought years of the 1950s, when creek flows had been low and records of actual diversion were sparse. The complaint asked the state engineer to investigate and reduce Price's right accordingly. The state engineer's office sent an examiner named Glenn Storch to Carbon County in October. Storch spent 2 days on the property, reviewed what records Price could provide, which were thin, and told Eldon informally that the office would likely propose a reduction in his right. He said the burden of proving continuous use rested with the right holder. He said the evidence for the 1950s period was incomplete. He said the proposed reduction might be as much as 50%. Eldon drove to his grandmother's house in Rawlins that evening. She had died in early November. The estate hadn't been cleared. He spent 3 hours in the attic. He found the deed to the 40-acre parcel in the trunk, where she'd said it would be. He found the letter in the cigar box, tied in a bundle of 9 letters with a length of cotton twine that had stiffened and gone brittle with age. It was 2 pages, written in brown ink on cream-colored paper, dated October 14, 1889. The handwriting was his great-grandfather's. He recognized it from the family Bible. The letter was addressed to the Wyoming Territorial Water Commissioner's Office in Cheyenne. August Price wrote that he had diverted 2.4 cubic feet per second from Sage Creek in the 1889 season under priority right, filed April 3, 1887, and had applied said water to beneficial use upon 160 acres of meadow and irrigated pasture. As in all seasons previous, beginning approximately April 20th and continuing through September 15th. He wrote that his headgate and ditch were in good order and that he expected to continue using the right in all subsequent seasons. Folded inside the letter was a hand-drawn map, pencil on the same cream paper. It showed Sage Creek, a north arrow, and the location of the Price headgate marked with an X and a measurement notation. 42 rods below the confluence of the North Fork. It showed the ditch alignment from the headgate to the meadow and a measurement stake driven at the creek bank for gauging the diversion. Eldon held the map under the attic light for a while. The North Fork confluence was still identifiable. It came in at a bend above the property, 42 rods, 693 feet. His current headgate sat approximately where August's map showed the original headgate. The right had not moved, had not been rebuilt at a different location, had been exercised on the same site for 85 years. He took the letter and the map downstairs and put them in his truck. Frank Demarest had been doing water law in Rawlins for 19 years. His office was on the second floor of a building on 5th Street, up a staircase worn smooth in the center from decades of boot leather. He knew the Sage Creek drainage the way he knew his own fence lines. Eldon brought the cigar box. Demarest read the letter twice. He looked at the map for a long time. He asked whether there was anything else from the attic. Account books, diaries, correspondence from the 1950s. Eldon said he'd looked. He'd found account books going back to the 1920s. He'd brought 3, the ones covering the 1950s drought years. Demarest opened the first one. His grandfather's handwriting, different from August's. He paged to the summer entries of 1952. He found an entry in July. Hay cutting on the North Meadow, 22 tons, sold to the feedlot in Rawlins at 18 a ton. An August entry. Second cutting, 11 tons. He looked up. He said you don't cut hay twice on a meadow without irrigation water. Not in Carbon County. Not in a drought year. He said that was the 1950s taken care of. Eldon said the meadows had run on Sage Creek water every year he could remember. Demarest said he believed him. He said the problem had been proving it. He said the letter changed that. The 1889 letter established 3 things, which Demarest laid out in a 14-page response to the state engineer's office, filed in January of 1973. First, the water right was actively and beneficially used in 1889, 2 years after filing. Not paper water. Not a claimed right without infrastructure. A documented diversion with a physical headgate in a recorded location. Second, the phrase, as in all seasons previous, established that 1889 was not the first year of use, but a continuation from the 1887 filing date. The right had been exercised since the year it was filed. Third, the hand-drawn map fixed the point of diversion at 42 rods below the North Fork confluence, a location consistent with Price's existing headgate, showing no material change in the point of diversion across 85 years. The right was where it had always been. Combined with the 1950s account book entries showing 2 hay cuttings per season that required irrigation water to produce, Demarest argued the abandonment claim had no evidentiary foundation. A right couldn't be abandoned if it was being used. The state engineer's examiner had found thin records. Thin records were not the same thing as absence of use. Kell's attorney responded in March of 1973. The response questioned whether account book entries proved water use specifically. It argued that even if the right had been exercised in 1889 and in the 1950s, the intervening decades could not be reconstructed from the available evidence. It asked the state engineer to proceed with the proposed reduction. Demarest requested an informal hearing. The state engineer's office scheduled it for September of 1973 in Rawlins. Cal Meacham ran a smaller ranch on the South Fork of Sage Creek and had known Eldon Price for 30 years. He stopped by the ranch in July of 1973 and asked how the water fight was going. Eldon said he thought it was going well. Meacham said he hoped so. He said Kell had won 2 water disputes in Carbon County in the previous decade. said Kell's Cheyenne attorney had beaten the state engineer's office in a storage rights case in 1968. Said money and lawyers had a way of producing results in water proceedings. He said it wasn't a criticism of Eldon, just how it went. Eldon said he had a letter from 1889. Meacham said he didn't know what that meant exactly. Eldon said he'd find out in September. The hearing ran 4 hours in the state engineer's regional office in Rawlins. Demarest presented the October 1889 letter, the hand-drawn map, the 1950s account books, and a survey he'd commissioned of the current Price Headgate location, which confirmed it sat within 8 feet of the position marked on August's map. He put Eldon on the record and walked him through 30 years of personal knowledge of the diversion and the meadow irrigation schedule. Specific dates, specific volumes, specific hay yields that could only have come from irrigated ground. Kell's attorney made his arguments in response. The hearing examiner asked questions of both sides. He asked Kell's attorney directly whether the Rafter K had any documentation showing the price right had not been used in any specific year. The attorney said they did not. The hearing examiner said that was the problem with the abandonment claim. The state engineer's office issued its determination in February of 1974. Eldon Price's water right on Sage Creek was confirmed in full, 2.4 cubic feet per second. Priority date April 3, 1887. Point of diversion as historically established, consistent with the 1889 letter and the Commission survey. The determination further noted that Kell's upstream diversion had been operating in excess of his filed right during low-flow periods. It ordered that during any period when Sage Creek flows fell below the combined appropriations of both users, the senior 1887 Price right would be satisfied before Kell's junior right could divert. The older right came first. That was the entire law. Kell did not appeal. His attorney sent a letter to Demarest acknowledging the determination. The Rafter K curtailed its upstream diversion on 3 occasions in the following summers, when the creek ran low and the state engineer's watermaster came out to measure flows. The watermaster's job was simple: measure the creek, confirm who was in priority, call the junior right off if the senior wasn't being met. The Price right was always in priority first. Kell did not speak to Eldon Price directly about any of it. They attended the same Cattlemen's Association meetings in Rawlins for 11 more years. They nodded when they passed in the hall, that was all. Demarest billed Eldon $1,840 for the full case. The response filing, the survey commission, the September hearing, and the follow-up correspondence after the determination. Eldon paid it over 8 months. The assessed value of a 2.4 CFS appropriation from Sage Creek at the going rate for transferred water rights in Carbon County in 1974 was approximately $14,000. More than 7 times the cost of the legal fight. Considerably more than August Price had imagined when he filed the right for a $5 filing fee in 1887. Eldon kept the 1889 letter in the cigar box. He made a certified copy for Demarest's water file and kept the original where he'd found it. He moved the box from the attic to the bottom drawer of the filing cabinet in the ranch office. He wrote on a slip of paper, 1889 water right letter, Sage Creek appropriation, August Price, do not lose, and taped it to the lid of the box. He left the cotton twine loose on top of the letter bundle, in case anyone needed to find it quickly. Eldon Price ranched the 340 acres along Sage Creek until 1991. He was 71 when he handed the operation to his son Warren. The filing cabinet went with the ranch. The cigar box was in the bottom drawer where Eldon had put it in 1974. Warren had been 32 years old when the determination came through. He'd been in the back row of the hearing room in September of 1973. He'd read the letter before the hearing and read it again after. He did not move the box from the bottom drawer. Warren's son ranches the 340 acres today. He has the filing cabinet. He has the cigar box. The 1889 letter is in the same condition it was when Eldon found it in the steamer trunk. Brown ink, cream paper, slightly foxed at the edges, the fold lines deep from being bundled for 80 years before anyone unfolded it. The hand-drawn map is still inside. The water right is still carried on the books of the Wyoming State Engineer's Office under the name of August Price. Priority date April 3, 1887. Amount 2.4 cubic feet per second. Point of diversion 42. Fur 2 rods below the confluence of the North Fork of Sage Creek, Carbon County, Wyoming. The Rafter K Ranch changed hands in 1987. The new owners filed a water use adjustment in 1989. It did not affect the price right. Nothing affects the price right. It is the senior right on that reach of Sage Creek. Has been since 1887. The watermaster knows it. Every subsequent owner of the Rafter K has known it. August Price wrote the letter in October of 1889 to report a use that had already happened. To a government office in Cheyenne that may or may not have read it carefully. In a territory that would become a state 8 months later. He could not have known what the letter would do in 1970s. He was reporting his water use the same way he reported it every year, because the territorial commissioner had asked water users to document their diversions, and August Price was the kind of man who did what he said he would do. He wrote it and folded it and sent it to Cheyenne and went back to his meadows. 83 years later, his great-grandson found it in a cigar box in a steamer trunk and drove it to an attorney in Rawlins and got his water back. Every inch of it. The water still runs from April through September, the same months August documented in 1889, down the same ditch alignment he drew on the same cream-colored paper. It ran before anyone living in Carbon County today was born. It will run after them. That is what a water right is. That is what a letter is, if you write it carefully and someone is careful enough to keep it.